factors interfering. Rebels, hackers, unaccounted for ex-military runaways such as yourself. This is what your fate had in mind for you, until I stepped in.
Sprawl was a surprise for me, not because I thought it'd be bad or anything like that, but because I wasn't expecting it to be as focused on the narrative as it was. And I'm not saying its story was strong and moving, honestly it was mostly just kind of there for me, but I appreciated the very focused approach to the game that kept it tight and fun. Now if you see my Turbo Overkill review, you'll know that I didn't really jive with the narrative in that game. I thought that the story was pretty meh overall, but even with a meh story, if it was shorter and more compact, I would not have, bothered talking about the story like that. I would have just been like, the story's meh, but it didn't overstay its welcome, so I'm fine with it. That game, according to how long to beat, is about 12 hours to beat on average. That's roughly how long it took me to get through all 3 episodes. Sprawl is only 5, so even with its meh story with a couple of high points, it's not in your face, it's not trying to really draw out these arcs in a narrative. It's just like, here are your objectives, here's the general story, boom, bop, da bam, you're there, you're done, 5 hours, and I really appreciate that. Sometimes keeping it short and concise makes all the difference in enjoyment. Even if the story is really good, if you draw it out too long, it loses its luster, and if it's already meh from the jump, then drawing it out too long starts hurting the gameplay, which in Turbo Overkill was otherwise fantastic. That quick little tangent to preface this review aside, let's talk about Sprawl. I'm going to use Steam's blurb as I do with some games just for the sake of keeping it concise. Sprawl is a hardcore retro FPS set in an endless cyberpunk megalopolis. I've never had to say that before. Escape the walled city and take on the militarized government of the Sprawl, fueled by the blood of your enemies and a mysterious voice in your head. Make your way towards the spire to topple whatever lays within. And I'd say the game does just that, on the tin. And it doesn't overstay its welcome doing so. While the story was admittedly background noise for me after a point to get me from one objective to another, it was very short and sweet. Again, you can complete the game in roughly 5 hours. For some of you, that's one sitting. For others, that's going to take you a month. But you'll find solace in the fact that in your limited amount of time to play games, it'll only take you a month. And I'm not making fun of those people with no time on their hands. I'm actually making fun of myself because while they're out adulting and having nights out in the town and stuff, I'm like, I adult, but I will also sit indoors and just play games. So if anything, there's a shot at myself. Anyway, I enjoyed the uphill battle that came from exploring each level despite the objectives boiling down to just flip this switch, kill this thing, kill this boss, repeat. But that is okay because frankly, I was deeply immersed in the world. Won't lie, aesthetically speaking, I got some Ghost in the Shell vibes. Mostly in one boss fight that I won't spoil, but that's because of the environment that you fight in. For people who have played Sprawl, you know the boss fight I'm talking about. All in all, while there's plenty of stuff to read in notes you can pick up and blurbs before each level, I'd say the story of Sprawl is kind of just there. But the vibes do hit hard, so I think that it's totally fine for this kind of game. I will say though that if you're not paying attention to what Father, that's the name of the voice guiding Seven, that's you, the protagonist, tells you, then there is no way to get him to repeat it or get a marker to tell you where you should go, so you might end up like me on occasion and end up running around in circles until you find the specific door or whatever you were supposed to do or go to earlier. It's one of the casualties of the dialogue from him occasionally blending into whatever you're doing. You can turn up the volume if you want, but even then his distorted style of voice just blends too perfectly in the chaos, and personally I think it should cut through it more, but that's just my opinion. Gameplay wise, Sprawl is very tight. While in Proteus, I felt like I was playing Wolfenstein or Doom, and in Turbo Overkill I felt like, well, I was on ice skates, but with a chainsaw. Sprawl, on the other hand, felt weighty and like it had a punch to it. Now, I will say that Proteus also had some weight to it. It felt like it had a punch, but Proteus also felt like I could kind of just shoot and keep moving. Sprawl feels that way, but less so, at least for me, in my opinion, with how I felt while I was playing. Even your shotgun pushed you backwards or upwards when you shoot it. so it was fun to improvise movement with it. You have an adrenaline meter as well that lets you use bullet time, but while it looks cool, I mostly use it to help me land some tricky shots rather than give myself time to think. You fill the adrenaline gauge by killing your enemies. By killing enemies and picking up their pickups. Like health, ammo, and adrenaline are said pickups. Combat wasn't what I would call hard, but it also wouldn't let up. At first you could take your time, but after a while it becomes more and more apparent that you need to keep moving. If you don't, enemies will definitely force you to. That said, once you get the hang of how different enemies behave, you will be able to dispatch them quickly. I love the fact that I felt the need to use all of my guns, despite getting so much ammo for all of them. From the shooters I've played, it's very easy for one gun to just replace another from time to time, but in this case, I genuinely felt like every last weapon had its purpose. That said, I mostly gravitated to the revolvers and shotgun at first, mostly because I'm biased to revolvers, they're pretty cool. Then, as the game progressed, I focused more on the chain gun and shotgun, while throwing in revolvers on occasion for some headshots since they're very good for those. All in all, Sprawl is... I'm sorry, that was fun to say. All in all, Sprawl is a short but very sweet package of a game, and I cannot recommend it enough to anybody looking for a quick shot in the arm because they've been itching for a shooter to play that doesn't overstay its welcome. So yeah, this gets a go for it. You can pick up Sprawl on PC and GeForce Now for $15. At the time of recording this, it is also coming out on consoles. Not sure which ones yet though, so you know what to do, future Daryl, if that changes. Anyway, that wraps up this review, so I hope you all have enjoyed your stay. I'm TUSDarryl, and I'll catch you guys next time.